They know me as Dan Jones, but that's not my real name. I've spent more than a year undercover with racists. I got a job.
We put them all in accounts until they agree to leave, and if they refuse, we shoot them.
I went camping. We saw some other hikers at that time who weren't white. I was in a far-right group during the summer riots.
If you're going to do one outside a migrant hotel or in the town centre.
And at their members-only gathering.
They literally skin them and you hang a few of their bodies up across the traffic lights.
They had no idea they were about to be unmasked.
Get out of the way.
Mr. Marsh, can you speak to us?
Stay out of my way.
Hi, I'm Dan. How you doing? What can I tell you about myself? I'm a delivery driver on 0 hours contract. I'm sofa surfing with a mate in Cardiff.
Dan is our undercover journalist, posing as a new recruit to a far-right group. Our team will be following his every move. Today he's been asked to go to a demo against migrants.
There's a network of them doing it across the country. They'll text me where to meet them, but they won't tell me where the protest's taking place till we're face to face. They're worried that people could turn up and hijack things like counter-protesters.
We're heading for a bridge over the M4.
To them, I'm just someone who turns up to demos like a foot soldier, because they need numbers of these things. I'm meeting the organiser who calls himself Welsh nationalist, Joe Marsh.
Right? Welsh Lives Matter.
Welsh Lives Matter. Our history, our culture. While we were standing there, I could see he was filming and posting videos of the demo on social media.
We've got How's the Welsh, Not the World, and there's quite a few people turned out. You can hear the support from the motorists down there.
Joe Marsh is a key figure in the white nationalist group Patriotic Alternative, or PA.
Anybody that wants to get involved in coming out on these bridge drops, just drop me a message on Telegram.
But as Dan discovers, some say one thing online, but another face-to-face.
And if we didn't have fucking Jamaicans here and Africans stabbing people, we wouldn't have a knife crime problem, or it would be minimal.
Marsh tells Dan why he thinks our government should ban migrants.
We've got foreigners who hate us, coming from countries that we've bombed, you know what I mean? It's a recipe for disaster, but they fucking know that. They know those people are going to come here and be hostile to us, and they just don't give a shit, like. It won't be their kids that get murdered, see?
Dan meets one of Marsh's friends, Roger, who's joined the protest.
About 35, 40 or something, actually.
Yeah.
We're all into prepping.
Oh, no.
Arming ourselves, things like that.
Yeah.
It's quite a pump action shotgun now.
Well, seriously, like
Proper one. Fucking proper one, yeah. Fucking about 29-inch pallets. It's a 3-inch mag shell.
Yeah.
Cut the end off the shell and then clear the shot out. Reseal it then with a single ball bearing in it. Make a slug.
Oh, my God.
Kill it. 150 yards slug. So, we'll have 6 guns in the cabinet. It's from me and my family and a few friends, so.
Yeah. Do you reckon you'll need something like that then soon, though?
Eventually, yeah. Of course you will. If you think you're going to fight these fucking migrants, that's not.
Yeah. He thinks he's some kind of patriot. But who's he doing this for, and how far is he going to go?
Our investigation exposes how members of this far right-wing group want new recruits to join what they call a race war on our streets, how they ask for cash to bankroll convicted racists, and how they peddle misinformation online and in communities to sow division. So how's it going?
Yeah, good. This is my PA membership card. I'm number 430.
Red squirrel, eh?
Yeah. When I go to protests, I go like this. And I've told them I can't be outed.
It's pretty common, is it? They don't care about.
No, they don't care as long as I'm there and I share their view of the world.
Since becoming a member, I'm just getting like relentless messages every day talking about how we're all being replaced and how immigrants are like literally invading our country and raping people.
Patriotic Alternative say they're not racist. They're simply campaigning for the rights of white, indigenous British people.
It's the last one I had. It says this is what an invasion of an enemy army looks like.
Dan is one of around 500 signed-up members, but they also have tens of thousands more supporters following them online.
The other day they shared a post about Rudolf Hess, former deputy Führer to Adolf Hitler. There's thumbs up and heart emojis. And even if, you know, you're not replying to these messages, but they just keep coming.
Rewind to the summer of 2023. Our investigation starts in Llanelli at a protest against plans to move nearly 300 asylum seekers into the Stradey Park Hotel. What began as a local campaign about how the community might be affected quickly became a cause for PA.
Look at that hotel there. Look at that, look. To be filled with scroungers. If anyone's watching and you're near, get down here because there's loads of people here, look. Only a few weeks ago, there was that Syrian guy stabbing babies in prams, wasn't there, in France? Yeah. You know? That fella could have been in that hotel, couldn't he? And then he would have been stabbing babies in Llanelli.
With the help of his friend Roger Phillips, they were whipping up locals and getting millions of hits online.
Can we ask that we get hundreds of protesters here now?
It's not just the far right who are concerned about immigration. People were worried about changes to their community. When the Home Office scrapped the plans, Marsh and PA claimed victory. But this isn't the first time we've investigated him.
Why have I got a balaclava on? Because the hassle that our lads have had from the police.
In 2010, police concerns were growing about a group he led, the anti-Muslim Welsh Defence League. Back then, Marsh tried to hide his identity with aliases.
You come and live in our country, that's fine, but you have to accept our ways and our laws.
After a spell in jail for assaulting an anti-fascist protester, he went face out, as PA call it.
Please welcome Joe Marsh.
We've done protests all over Wales, and after our protests, the migrants have moved out.
The content that Joe Marsh posts online has clocked up more than 20 million views on YouTube alone. Now, that doesn't just raise PA's profile even more. It gives them the opportunity to recruit new members. New members like Dan, who's been asked to go to another banner drop.
What's the plan then? Just hanging these off the bushes,
Hang the banners up and then stand here flying the flags.
and then someone goes down and takes the videos.
We've got banners supporting the farmers, banners about freedom of speech for patriots, and banners about housing the Welsh.
They are latching onto local causes. It almost feels like they're just casting the net to see what people will support them for.
Joe Marsh says that PA are peaceful and non-violent. But then Dan meets Aaron at the demo.
He's an activist who's turned up at other PA demos, including Straddy. He seemed really angry about the government and migrants.
They're going to exterminate us, destroy our country, our people and our families, and call us racist. Or we can stand up to them and they're still going to call us racist. You got two choices. Fight or die. Fight or die. Learn to resist or cease to exist. That's your only choices, mate.
So Aaron told me he used to work for HMRC, so Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, but he'd lost his job.
He'd been outed by anti-fascist campaigners Hope Not Hate over racist comments he'd made online, and after being spotted at demos, including this one against the housing of refugees and asylum seekers in 2023.
Nazi scum!
So he told me that it had been really intense.
First one started, he had a bitten his fucking nose off. You best bet is kill the first one who comes after you and the rest will shit their pants. Fuck them. And I mean that. From the bottom of my twisted little arm. You fight now? No martial arts, gym, shit like that? Like that, no. Good practice.
So you reckon you need there?
Yeah. It's good to know, like, yeah, if I want, I can fucking kill someone.
That was really shocking because it kind of came out of nowhere. The language he was using does seem at odds with what they say publicly because, you know, they're always saying, oh, I'm not a racist. We're not advocating violence. Like Marsh said that to me on the same bridge.
That demo came just days after PA were accused by the previous government of promoting neo-Nazi ideology and told that they'd be assessed against a new definition of extremism.
And it's just bullshit. They can't ban us. He classes us as an extremist group. At this stage, everyone's an extremist if you're against the government's narrative.
PA is led by Mark Collett, who was a leading figure in the BNP and now streams videos with far-right influencers from around the world. People like David Duke, the former leader of the Ku Klux Klan.
This is about a tsunami of anti-white rapes and sexual assaults against our children.
His deputy is Laura Towler, seen here with her husband Sam Melia, who was jailed last year for intending to stir up racial hatred.
How does it feel, my love, that we don't care about being called racist and that word has no power here? You think I'm racist? I don't care.
PA is a big organisation. It's been the #1 far-right organisation now for a number of years.
For decades, Nigel Bromwich was a neo-Nazi, recruiting for the infamous National Front, as well as Combat 18.
I started as somebody who hated the IRA and terrorism, and actually ended up at the very end supporting direct action as the only way forward.
He eventually turned his back on the far right and now runs a charity which helps to de-radicalise followers, including some who've left PA.
Anybody who's got a need or susceptibility, they'll bring in, they'll make them feel valuable. It's the most effective that it's ever been. You know, they offer the best wraparound service you can get. But the fact they have active branches in most parts of the UK should really, really be concerning to all of us.
Dan is starting to feel that wraparound service for himself Undercover, he's told PA that he's sofa surfing and scraping by on casual work.
Joe Marsh suggested that if I wanted some work to make an extra bit of money, to get in touch with Aaron. You know, he used to work for HMRC, but, you know, now works as a handyman since he was outed. Aaron has been in touch and he's texted me to say there's a job going, doing some wallpapering for a customer.
At the job, Aaron soon starts using the strongest racial slurs.
Right, the fucking feel. This is how I have to earn my living since those bastards that bloody hate fucking dogs me.
What happened then?
I just emailed my boss. I was like, look, boss, this shit's come out about me. You know, a lot of my comments were incitement to racial hatred and ethnic violence. I'm not admitting to that because it's all fucking, you know, hate speech laws.
Yeah.
But all I said was what everyone else is thinking. So quite frankly, if they want to convict me for that, they can go fuck themselves.
Did the police get involved or anything?
Oh yeah, Andy Terror at my door. Oh, we want to chat to you. All right, here's my phone. Oh, cheers. Right, okay. Can't find any account with that on your phone? No, you can't. Because it was a brand new fucking phone. And I burned the old one. Literally on a barbecue. So they couldn't fucking get me.
He thought it was clever that he'd managed to lie to prevent officers, and his views haven't changed.
Yes, that is a live socket.
Is it?
Yes. Good to know.
He spoke to me about wanting migrants to leave the country and what he thinks should happen if they refuse to do that.
We put them all into camps until they agree to leave, and if they refuse, we shoot them. And that's the end of it. It's the only way they'll leave. The only way we can keep this country ours.
It's a constant tirade of racism. And PA's public face is non-violent, but here's one of their activists saying what he wants to do to people who refuse to leave the country.
Yeah, let me know what you want me to do with access, or what maybe you want me to do now.
They finish up for the day and drive off.
The communities that are the most diverse are A, the people we want to get rid of, violently preferably, and B, the people who love living amongst fucking diverse rapists. Quite frankly, fuck that, you know. We do not willingly live amongst these subhuman invaders. We don't want to live with them. Nobody in their right fucking mind wants a brownoid for a fucking neighbour. Nobody in their right fucking mind.
Some of the language was completely abhorrent and I would argue definitely inciting.
Ramya Nagesh is a barrister who's written a book on hate crime. We showed her some of our findings.
He's talked about put them in camps until they agree to leave. If they don't, we'll shoot them. I mean, that's out-and-out violence and war. He was talking about how he destroyed his phone evidence. If there's a police investigation or a trial and you destroy evidence, you are potentially perverting the course of justice. So he may have been admitting to a crime right then and there.
What did she make of Joe Marsh and his friend Roger's comments?
He's playing a pump action shotgun now. If you think he's going to fight these fucking migrants,
What alarm bells does that ring legally?
Large alarm bells, and it's the language of war, but he's also saying, I've taken preparation to participate in this war. And certainly the purpose for which ammunition is held and guns are held as well is something that comes into it.
If we didn't have fucking Jamaicans here and Africans stabbing people, we wouldn't have a knife crime problem.
There was that Syrian guy stabbing babies in prams. That fella could have been in that hotel, couldn't he?
I would argue that Mr. Marsh was trying to incite racial hatred. You don't use inflammatory words like that and expect them not to incite some sort of hatred for the people that you're talking about.
It's now the summer. Dan has been undercover investigating the far right for 9 months. PA is bringing members together for the annual camping event.
Marsh was telling me how it would be a good opportunity to meet the leaders, so to get to know Mark Collett and spend some time with him and kind of get my face known, you know. The location is kept secret until, well, this morning we found out where it would be. I think they're worried about undercover journalists, Antifa, infiltrating their organisation. When they're in these groups, in isolated places, they can like share their views with each other without being worried about being called racists.
Nestled in stunning countryside, around 150 PA members were setting up camp.
I rang Mark Collett and he said to go and check into the campsite and say we're from the Pennine Hikers Association, because he was worried about them finding out who we were.
Okay, guys.
Oh, yeah.
You with the Pennine Hikers? Yeah.
You're not turning up to a field and it's full of a bunch of skinheads with swastikas on their foreheads. It's, you know, it's everyday people.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, how's it going, mate?
Yeah, good. I'm giving these out so we know how many people have arrived.
Thank you very
There's
much.
the band for you. Anyone with a purple band is one of the gang.
Yeah, purple band. One of the gang.
Next morning, as they're preparing to go on a hike, Dan meets PA members from other parts of the country, including Tom, who's from the Midlands.
He was talking about how he wanted to create social content listing the differences between different races.
I feel like with Muslims, they don't have that kind of self-control kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Which is a weakness of Muslims, but you see this in feral people. Especially, you know, you see this in Indians, you see this in Arabs, Pakistanis, where boys have this kind of like feral view of like, oh, I see another girl, I'm thinking about making guide videos of how else we can tackle certain different races, list all their weaknesses, give that to us so we can know how to exploit that and give that as wide as knowledge. But
like share it amongst the group kind of thing.
Yeah.
Dan spots PA Wales organiser Joe Marsh arriving at camp.
I'm going to show my face like that.
Yeah. Everyone's been asking after you, man. You're hanging around for the evening, though, yeah?
I'll have a little stay for a bit, like, you know.
I don't want any more intimidation of anyone. If I get another complaint, I phone the police. Because unfortunately, we've got people moving away, a long way away.
Across the field, it looks like things are becoming tense.
We heard that the camp had found out that the group weren't hikers, they were Patriotic Alternative, and the campers were really angry about that, and it got quite confrontational.
But Joe Marsh wasn't budging.
They need to just shut up. How many police would it take to turf us out here? Because people say, no, not going, we paid, you can fuck off.
They stayed put, but as Dan joined members of the group for their hike in the hills, he met a former teacher, Patrick, laughing about what passers-by would make of PA's gathering.
I'm still shaking. I've just seen a group of Nazis in our glorious English countryside. Thank you for the list.
Yes?
He tells Dan why he believes in PA and its aims.
The only organisation that has a chance of eventually changing things and possibly even taking power.
Why do you think that is, then? What's different?
if you look at what the National Socialist Party did in Germany after the Führer was released from Landsberg prison, is they were doing community organising.
Right.
They were talking to local people about local issues, not as politicians, and that was what paved the way for them skyrocketing to the elections from 1929 onwards. So, what we're doing now, I'm convinced, is the only approach.
It's just the same kind of
chance of success.
It's like mirroring it, then, yeah.
Yeah.
You thought PA were doing exactly what the Nazis had done before the Second World War.
Take it in turns to carry the big banners.
We bumped into Tom again, and we'd just seen some hikers who, you know, weren't white, and he presumed they must have been Muslim.
Well, what happened was they just stared at us, looked down upon us, but they had that stance that, you know, when they have their packs, they put that kind of racial stance. But, you know, if we were going to come down, I can't say that. I'm still a fair person here, but I would have crushed those guys. That's, I wouldn't want to do it from there.
Have you ever had trouble before when you've been out?
Thankfully, no. But I've been unfortunately that type of guy, which isn't good behaviour, where I'm kind of go seeks trouble. Something you have to kind of like suppress. So there's always that kind of predatory urge, if you know what I mean.
It's more than him just saying, I don't like people who aren't like me. He's talking about distributing guides and committing violence.
But the freedom of speech is a cherished right for many people in this country. Where does that fit in with much of what you've seen?
I can't exercise my freedom of speech if it's going to potentially harm somebody else. And the same for these people as well. If they're using their freedom of speech protections in order to advocate for war, spread lies about specific groups, and really encourage hatred of particular groups, which could then lead to violence, they're abusing freedom of speech.
The next day, as camp was packing up, leader Mark Collett was already planning their next big event.
Well, look, the conference is coming up in October. We've got that. There'll be an email going out about that shortly. Tickets will be sold for that. We've got really good speakers.
Dan asks what he wants activists to do in their communities.
We've got to do things that actually get results. So, like, if there's an asylum seeker centre and we can all get there and protest against it and shut down, that's a result. You know.
So is that that's what you want us to do locally then?
Joe down in Wales.
Nestle. Yeah.
That got shut down. There was 2 in Yorkshire that we got shut down, and there was another one somewhere else. So, and that makes real difference for local people, because if you're working a shitty 9-to-5 job, you're worrying about money, whether you can make ends meet, then all of a sudden you're worrying about whether your daughter's going to get raped because there's 250, men of fighting age just turned up who are eyeing her as she walks to school. Then a group comes in, gets that thing shut down and removes that worry. That's a positive in people's lives. And,
Collett's mission was clear. He wanted PA boots on the ground in working class areas. And Dan has been asked to go on another banner drop, this time in Merthyr Tydfil. He's meeting Marsh and other activists in the pub.
Let's go, man. You all right?
All right, nice one.
It's not long before the conversation turns to migrants moving to the Vale of Glamorgan.
Wait till that camp fills up now, man. 476 of them, fucking hell, like. They won't know what's it up there, they really won't, like. They can't look at a woman discreetly. No, they're literally dribbling, aren't they? Like, yeah. They just stood with their tongues hanging out, like. The people in Lansbury all wish they'd stood with us then.
They all head for a bridge near the town centre.
We'd be all over the fucking Facebook now.
I met an activist called Alex. He works at a local factory and told me he recruited a colleague to PA. He offered me a lift.
I was just talking to him in work and I was on about this and he was like, oh, I know, I got a fucking phone. And I said, have you had a PA? He said, yeah, Mark Collette. And, well, they went from there, basically. Because there's like so many fucking now in work now with us. Lazy bastards. 90% of them are.
How did you get involved in all this then?
I just tried to get NF when I was like 21, and I do all this fucking did the fuckers now.
Just 2 days after the banner drop, 3 schoolgirls are stabbed to death at a dance class in Southport, sparking riots.
Clashes this evening.
Shock and grief.
Horrific knife attack.
The suspect is said to be a young black man originally from Cardiff. PA's leader, Mark Collett, wasted no time.
We're saying these people shouldn't be in our country, that they're a threat to us. A lot of these black people come from very, very low IQ countries. They have low impulse control.
Joe Marsh called for mass deportations. Hey mate, how's it going, right?
Yeah, good.
Getting some stuff on your phone?
Yeah, so I've been getting a lot of messages from about Southport. And I spotted someone in the riots who I'd seen in the summer camp. This guy who calls himself the English Wanderer.
So he's got a free Sam Melia t-shirt on, so PA using something that's getting worldwide attention to get themselves noticed.
Yeah, Mark Collett was saying that MPs would rather the streets run red with the blood of children than deport a single migrant.
Even when police confirmed the man accused of the murders was British, born in Cardiff to Rwandan parents, it didn't stop Joe Marsh.
He's not Welsh, he's African, right?
And as the violence continued to spread across the country, he gave advice to his followers.
People shouldn't be calling demos at mosques, right? If you're going to do one outside a migrant hotel or in the town centre, right? Outside a mosque is just asking for trouble, and it makes us look like the bad guys at this. I think if it's a hotel full of migrants, people would be more understanding.
The next day, large crowds gathered outside a migrant hotel in Tamworth, hurling petrol bombs. And at another in Rotherham, there was an arson attack. We don't know if any of the protesters were PA members or followers of Joe Marsh, but could such comments have fueled the violence that erupted during the summer?
So again, it's very evocative, fear-mongering language, which again I would argue is designed, or at least is likely to, incite racial hatred.
Regarding the activity outside the migrant hotel, telling people not to go to mosques, is there any defence there, given what did happen?
Well, if we took that in isolation, yes, he was just saying, go protest outside a hotel, and people are allowed to protest. They can protest peacefully. When we look at everything all together, we could argue that given his followers, given his history, and given the other things that he says, he is pushing something more than just a peaceful protest. And I think that that would fit very firmly into a criminalised offence of inciting racial hatred.
PA is continuing to raise thousands of pounds for the families of a number of people jailed for their parts in the summer riots. They also bankroll PA members who are convicted racists. They call them political prisoners and are asking Dan to support them.
So they've been asking for money for different people for a while. So for Sven Longshanks, They've raised over £10,000 for him.
His real name is James Allchurch. He was part of the Lantwit Major protest and ran a neo-Nazi podcast described as vile by the judge who jailed him for 2.5 years, saying he was bent on inciting racial hatred.
They've raised almost £70,000 for Sam Melia.
Melia, who's married to PA's deputy leader, was described as an anti-Semite with Nazi sympathies by the judge who jailed him. But Marsh and the group still back him.
Right, this banner here, guys, is for Sam Melia, who's doing 2 years.
This is someone who's been convicted of stoking racial tensions.
Another racist getting PA's cash is James Costello, who's serving 5 years.
Send them back. We will not be replaced.
Costello was editor of a website which called for a racial holy war.
We are Patriotic Alternative. Freedom for James Costello and freedom for all political prisoners. Thank you.
Dan is now so trusted by PA, they've asked him to help with security at their upcoming annual conference.
I'm about to message Joe Marsh to find out a bit more about the conference this weekend. Oh, here we go. So he's replied. Yeah, I think he's been told not to tell anyone where the conference is. So they're being super careful.
It's the morning of the conference. Dan and Joe Marsh are on security duties at the train station, directing activists to the venue.
How's it going, man?
How's it doing? It's brilliant.
Dan, remember I met you at camp? Yes,
yes.
Tom, right?
And Tom arrives, the one who'd made racist comments at the summer camp.
Things are looking up job-wise for me.
What are you up to now?
So, working at the HMRC area.
No way.
Tax points, so...
You're a tax man?
Yeah.
Yes. While we were waiting, I asked Joe Marsh about how Sven, James Allchurch, was getting on. He said he'd been released from jail on licence.
Gave him fucking $5,000 the other week, like, because Laura sent it to me. I didn't want it in my bank, so I sent it to his mother, you know?
Yeah.
I don't want nothing to do with raising money, like, you know? It's not worth the hassle. I don't want the fucking Inland Revenue investigating me.
With the conference about to start...
Hello?
Marsh gets a call.
What have they said? What, they know the hole, do they? Yeah, okay, yeah, no worries. So, the lefties know where the hole is, they said.
No way. They haven't said anything, have they?
They just said be careful in case any lefties turn up here. They just ring up and say, do you know that you've got a load of Nazis in there today? Or do you know you've got the Ku Klux Klan? You know? And it's just like the venue then, they'll shit themselves. You know what I mean?
You want one there, old kid?
I've got one, actually. Yeah, I will have one.
Security.
I've got to admit, I was pretty worried myself. I'm security, so my cover could be blown if protesters or police turn up and things kick off. When we eventually arrive, it seems quiet, for now. But I had to be on my guard the whole time. I'm gonna head in, guys, up. The hall was already packed. One of their guests of honor was an Australian white supremacist. They gave him this big build-up.
Our fifth speaker today is a man with a jaw like an anvil. It's Blair Cotterill!
This guy's a convicted criminal with form for burglary, arson, and inciting contempt of Muslims back home. but they wheeled him out like some kind of celebrity.
This is the first time leaving Australia for me, so I didn't begin with anything small.
But away from the stage, Cottrell spoke to Dan and others about crime in his country and how he'd sort it out.
We have a problem with home invasions and car theft at the moment. It's always Africans. An old lady was stabbed to death by a gang of African kids. An old white lady who comes from this, right? When you look at the way things work in Africa, the only language they understand is violence. And the only way to effectively respond to a crime they're committing that's as heinous as the one I just described is you literally skin them and you hang a few of their bodies up across some traffic lights. Just theoretically, of course, I can't condone it. Yeah. But then, I'm not just saying this, that is practically the most effective way to actually send them a message, and then they finally pull up. If you do anything less than that, they just keep escalating because they don't take you seriously. Unfortunately, you can't talk them down, you can't reason with them. You have to use brutal force.
His views were so violent and extreme, yet no one called it out. I went for a walk around, and I saw they were selling merchandise, books and badges.
Words we forget on with the popular speaking. It upsets the liberal people listening.
Well, I'll have that one. It's a Lest We Forget badge, the poppy, and wearing an England football shirt. They're also selling these, which, see that? Don't unpack, you're going back.
Outside, Dan hears PA leader Mark Collett boasting about how yet again they'd lied to book the venue.
This was Uncle Derek's 50th birthday we just enjoyed. Everyone books under a false name. You know, we've got a system of doing it. And we're just going to keep doing it like this because it works.
Inside, Tom, who says he's started work with the Inland Revenue, tells Dan how he deals with people who aren't white.
I don't waste my time engaging with my racial enemies.
It's hard to like turn it on and off like that in work because you're like in an office now. Yeah.
So when I'm interacting with non-whites, I sometimes deliberately give them bad information which sounds interesting, like I'm deliberately trying to sabotage them. It's quite funny. I thought the first one I'd do it, I'd be caught out. But thankfully, many times I've actually got away with it.
Tom goes on to admit that his views have become even more extreme.
I swear, because I'm a white totalitarianist, I'm not a supremacist or nationalist, I'm a white totalitarianist. I believe a world where whites become the default human race. All other races are extinct except whites. I'm not afraid to say that even to non-whites.
And there was no stopping Blair Cottrell.
The way the nature of an African works is very similar to that of a dog. As long as you're firm with it, it respects you. If you're not, then it will sort of always try to get it over you a bit more. Because we went to Africa, the Jewish slave ships took the slaves. But for a while they were working in our fields, and they were happy with that. They were going as pets, they were doing everything they could to look after us. And that's because we conquered the world. They used to see us as gods, and so that's why they worked for us. It was a pleasure. It was better than living in the bush. It all goes back to that human equality idea, doesn't it? The whole idea that everyone's the same as us and they deserve the same treatment. Why is that true? So some bloke that comes from Africa and just wants to rape a village, he deserves the same rights as me and my family.
As the evening went on, I was hearing more and more extreme views. Then Tom told us about a video he'd found.
Just search this up on, you won't find it on YouTube. Just a bit of a disclaimer here. You will see scenes of bestiality. If there's scenes that you want to skip, I don't blame you because they're so fucking horrible. But there's a lot of footage, and I also will warn you, of Indians getting killed by trains, tigers, leopards. I've literally gotten to the point where I just don't tolerate these non-whites in their own country, let alone in my country.
I spoke to Tom's regional organiser, who'd overheard some of the comments he'd made.
I mean, I've had to tell him to wind it in social media. He was using racial slurs and saying I've had to tell him a couple of times. I'm not saying I'm going to boot you out of PA, but I've implied that you will be asked to leave and you will get arrested. You're very much a spur wrangler, I find as well. You have to stop the spurs from getting themselves arrested.
That word he used, spurg, it's a derogatory term for someone who's neurodiverse with Asperger's.
Sitting at the same table as Tom was Patrick, the former history teacher who Dan had met at summer camp.
Well, you buy into the race war kind of thing?
Oh yeah, it's absolutely inevitable. There's no way this situation is going to be resolved without unbelievable levels of suffering and violence and death and bloodshed. Let's say there's very rapid political change and we get a PA government in 2 years' time. I don't think that's impossible. And let's say we said to all the foreigners who have no right to be here, which is all of them, let's say we offer them lavish amounts of money to piss off back to the shitholes they come from. Some of them will take it. Most of them won't. And they will think, let's go for it. A lot of our young men have seen action in war zones. We've got the weapons under our mosques, because they have. Do you think they're going to go quietly? There'll still be unbelievable levels of violence, because the only way to get rid of them will be to kill every single one of them, and we will have to have hearts of steel to do that.
He is saying we either pay them money to go back to their shitholes they came from, or we kill them. He is inciting, at the least, hatred, if not effectively a call to arms, a call to war. Then we get onto the clip where he's talking about a video on his phone, which has bestiality. First of all, bestiality images are themselves illegal. And again, by his account, very graphic videos of Indians being killed and attacked. He's using the videos to incite racial hatred, I would argue. It's shocking, isn't it? It's probably one of the most egregious of all the clips that you've shown. I mean, he is talking with impunity, really. He's talking, as you say, he's using violence of skinning and hanging up Africans.
And he says he doesn't condone them. Is that?
He says he doesn't condone them and then goes on to say, but it's the most effective way to deal with them. Saying, I'm saying this theoretically, doesn't absolve you. You could infer that he clearly intended to incite racial hatred. He was saying that for an audience. He's surrounded by people who are effectively hanging off his every word.
What, in your opinion, given what you've seen, what do you think should happen now?
From what I've seen, and of course I'm just one lawyer, but I would consider that there's more than enough evidence here for the police to investigate and refer to the Crown Prosecution Service. After the Southport riots, we saw prosecutions of individuals who'd posted even just one or two messages on their social media platforms. And those messages were arguably not as inflammatory as the ones that you have shown me today. So certainly, if these people were proven to have done these acts in a court of law and to have committed the criminal offences, I would expect them to be facing prison time.
We contacted Blair Cottrell in Australia and repeatedly asked him about his comments. He replied, but he didn't answer any of our questions. Former teacher Patrick didn't deny our allegations about him. He accused the BBC of having an anti-white bias and persecuting ordinary British people who care deeply about the safety of our indigenous people. So what would the founder and leader of PA have to say about our evidence and comments made to Dan? It's not just your members, but some of your supporters. At your annual conference, you had, as one of the keynote speakers, a man called Blair Cottrell. He likened Africans to dogs. He said slaves had been happy to work for white people. He also suggested that black criminals should be skinned and their bodies hung up at traffic lights to deter others.
That is not something that I would call for, but I'm sure there are millions of people all over this country that if you said, what should happen to the leaders of these grooming gangs, they would say, string them up.
Will you be continuing links with him, given his extreme views?
I'm not going to throw my friend under the bus, of course I'm going to stay in touch with him, yeah.
And what about the comments other PA members made?
They were made at our camp, which is a private gathering, and they were made in private conversations, and they were made at our conference, which is a private, invite-only event, and they were made in private conversation.
But the law is very clear. Unless such comments are made in the privacy of someone's home, then it's not a defence. Another thing you do is you raise money for people convicted of racial offences. You call them political prisoners, but they're not political prisoners.
Yes, they are.
They've been convicted of racial offences.
They've been convicted of thought crimes and speech crimes. You know it, I know it. We raise money for them. We're proud of it.
Talking about raising money, you've been raising money for people convicted for their parts in the summer riots.
Yeah.
Are you going to continue
I'm proud
doing
of that, of course. Of course I am.
Is it a tactic of yours to latch on to local causes, genuine local concerns, and to stir up racial hatred?
There are concerns. We have members in the area. It's assisting local people with their campaigns. And that is something that every political group does.
You're not a group that is espousing horrible racist language and encouraging...
No, we're people who tell the truth. We're people that advocate for the rights of Indigenous Britons, and we are people that campaign against what is going on now in this country.
Mark Collett denied that his members had incited racial hatred and said he hadn't either in the wake of the Southport riots. Far-right groups like Patriotic Alternative can't be banned unless they're found to be promoting terrorism. They insist they know the law and stay on the right side of it.
They may not engage in terrorism, but are they creating a climate that's conducive to it? I would argue yes. Are they creating a climate for violence, hate crime? Yes.
When Dame Sarah Khan became Britain's first counter-extremism commissioner, she called for new laws to ban groups like PA.
Having assessed and analysed the harm that they are causing to our country, how they're attempting to mainstream extremism in our country, we've seen their recent activity and their contribution towards public disorder in the summer riots. They should absolutely not be allowed to operate with impunity, and I made that absolutely clear in my report from 4 years ago. The fact that they still are, and I think their activity has worsened, I think is devastating.
Mark Collett says that PA is not an extremist organisation. We've spoken to a former government advisor who says your group is creating a climate conducive to terrorism, violence and hate.
We are not a terrorist organisation.
But
we are not a terrorist organisation.
That is why you're not illegal under the law.
We are not a terrorist organisation. We do not endorse violence or terrorism.
Are you, as Michael Gove and others have suggested, akin to being a neo-Nazi white supremacist organisation?
No, we want the best for the Indigenous people of these islands.
But what about the extreme racial slurs and violent views we'd heard from PA members? Are you responsible for the actions of your members, those who've been convicted and those who... So you take no responsibility for what Aaron, Tom, Patrick, Alex and Joe may have said?
I take responsibility in the sense that it is my responsibility to ensure they abide by a code of conduct and to ensure there's an investigation. When we've seen the evidence, those people will either be subject to a written warning, suspension or expulsion, depending on the breach of the code of conduct.
Mark Collett told us he wasn't speaking for those we'd secretly filmed. So what did they have to say about our evidence? Alex, the factory worker from Merthyr, who'd made racist comments about colleagues, didn't answer our questions. And what about Roger, who said he was planning to buy that pump-action shotgun to defend against migrants? He says he's never been a member of PA, that he'd suspected Dan was undercover, so fed him false information, and that he'd been talking about paintballing guns. And Tom, who had so much to say when he met Dan, has gone silent on us, refusing to answer any questions. But we did track down handyman Aaron to ask him about his racist rants.
Property.
Out of the way.
I'm not on your property.
Stay out of my way.
Why do you think, sir? So why do you think the migrants should be rounded up and put in camps and shot if they don't?
Get out of the way. Get out of the way.
I'm not on your property.
You're not getting any comment off me, because anything I say, you'll lie about, okay? So just stay on my way. I'm leaving for work. Get out of the way.
Why do you think the migrants should be rounded up, put in camps and shot if they refuse to leave? Mr. Watkins, will you speak to us, sir? There we go. Mr. Watkins doesn't want to speak to us about comments he's made about migrants, putting them in camps and being shot if they don't go away.
And then there's PA's organiser for Wales, Joe Marsh. He didn't want to speak to us either.
It's the BBC here. Hi. We've got to say about allegations that you've been inciting racial hatred and...
I haven't been inciting anything, mate.
You're not at all?
No.
Have you been inciting people to racial hatred and introducing new recruits to people with vile and extreme racist views?
No.
So what have you been doing then?
What have I been doing? I'm legally protesting, mate.
You don't advocate the removal of people from this country, and if they don't move from this country, then they should be perhaps killed, as some of your members
have I said
argue.
that, have I?
No, some of your members have, and you've introduced
I haven't
these...
said that, have I?
Do you not believe that, no?
No, I don't believe that, no. I've never asked for anyone to be killed. And all the things that you've said, that people have said, they've not said it in front of me.
OK, thanks for your time, Mr.
All right, then,
Thanks.
thanks.
So much. Cheers,
Yeah,
mate. Thank you,
cheers.
Mr. Cheers.
Joe Marsh and his associates may not think they've done anything wrong, but our investigation has prompted new calls for the government to take action over PA and groups like them.
So I think we need hateful extremism prescription orders to outlaw those organisations. I think we need legislation to criminalise the leaders of these organisations, because I don't believe they can be de-radicalised.
And are you making these points to the current government?
I am making them to the government, and I will continue to do so.
How urgent is the issue?
It's incredibly urgent. Unless something changes, I'm afraid we're going to continue to see groups like PA radicalise our children and make us a weaker and less democratic society.
The Home Office told us that extremism has no place in our society. They're working closely with law enforcement and other partners at home and abroad to tackle those who sow division and hatred. After more than a year undercover, Dan has cut all ties with PA.
Okay? That's it. I've deleted all the apps. No more messages day and night. No more hate. I'm done.
Dan can walk away, but after unmasking some of the far right's foot soldiers, it might not be as easy for them to do the same.